Hey, it's Monday, which means it's time for Wheezy Mondays. Before we begin, I should let you know that on the main channel, my video Is College Worth It just came out. I worked really hard on it. I think you might like it. Go check it out. I'll wait. I'm going to do that joke now where I wait for you to do something and then you come back. You ready? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so today I want to go through, how many books? I want to go through 6 books. 5 of them are nonfiction books that had an effect on me. One of them is a fiction book that is my favorite book of all time that also had an effect on me. The first book I'm going to mention, I think about all the time. I think I read it about 4 or 5 years ago. It really changed my perspective on a lot of things slowly. I didn't read it and was like, this is the world now. No, it was a slow sort of something I slowly thought of for a while. And, but now I feel like looking back, it truly did change my perspective. Start with Why, Simon Sinek. I talked about it on a main channel. I mentioned that I was reading it and that I really liked it at the time. It was like before we moved to Austin. And it was during the time where my channel was kind of at a low point. It had been on the decline for a while, and I was wondering what the purpose was, and I was going through a bit of a sort of like crisis of purpose. Like I didn't know what to do next because everything felt like I had done it already. Was uninspired, wasn't excited about the things I was making, but I kept making them anyway. This book is about how it's mainly geared towards companies and businesses, which I don't really technically have. I mean, I have a business, but it's just me. But it's basically saying like the companies that thrive, the people that find success are those that start with why. There's a why, there's a how, and there's a what. The what is what you're making. The how is how you implement what it is you want to do. And why are you doing it? And the companies that really focus on that why, like Apple, when they revived themselves a long time ago, their why was think different. Well, actually, if you go back at the very beginning, their why was Steve Jobs was saying like he basically wanted to create the bicycle for the mind, which was the computer. He wanted to bring tools. He wanted to improve the lives of the world through technology, basically. Whether or not you believe what his purpose truly was, that was the core company values. And then later on, when the Apple was declining, it was like, think different. They're not going to do it. They're not a technology company. They're a company that thinks different. They're going to push to the edge. They're going to be on the frontier. And how are they going to do that? By delivering you tools to help you be better. And what is the thing? Computers, basically. And he goes through all these companies that had done this in the past and found great success. And in individuals, he talks about Martin Luther King Jr. And it got me thinking more in terms of why I do anything. Like, why am I making a thing? And the more I asked that question, the more apparent it became that the things I didn't have a reason for a lot of the things I was doing. And ultimately, and it took me a long time to fully realize it, but looking back, that's truly why a lot of things felt empty that I was making, and I wasn't excited about them because I didn't have much of a purpose other than this is what I do. I should make another thing because that's what I do. That's what people are expecting. That's technically what I've always wanted to do, even though I've been doing it for a long time now, and it's becoming less fun. And now the videos I'm making, I'm always making sure there's a clear reason to make them. The new college video I just put up is to truly figure out an answer to the question, because going around all over the internet these days is the idea that college isn't worth it, that you can teach yourself. We have the internet. And it's super duper expensive, and there's a legitimate argument to be made that college isn't worth it. But I wanted to make a video to truly analyze that question for myself and to share what I thought about it, to maybe help people who are struggling with the decision to go to college, and to just answer the question. Because I went to college, and I don't think it wasn't worth it. I think it was worth it for me, even though I can't draw a direct line between my college degree and what I do now. I can. There are many things about college that shaped who I am, and it worked out for me. I'm not saying it's going to work for everybody, but that's that video. That's the purpose of that video, and all these other videos that I do. There's always a core reason to do them rather than pointlessness, which used to be my purpose. That was WheezyWaiter from the beginning. Dare to be pointless, even though that actually had a point too, which was. It was kind of hard to, I don't know if I want to get into it, but the pointlessness itself was the point, was that you don't always have to take yourself so seriously. When people that take themselves too seriously it can lead to problems. If you be silly for silly's sake, it can be really fun, it can be really creative, it can be entertaining, and motivating. And I think that was, looking back, that's sort of what the purpose of purposelessness was. But I did that, and that's done now. So now every video, I try to make sure it has a specific purpose. Because if it doesn't, it truly does feel empty. And I didn't realize that's why it felt empty. Okay, moving on. Number 2. I'm not going to spend that long in every book. That's just probably the most important one. But number 2 is Decisive, which is a book by Chip and Dan Heath. I mentioned it in the college video. So it basically just helps you to make decisions. I read it a while ago. I need to read it again because I don't remember everything. But one of the things that always comes back to me that I mentioned in the video in the college video is the either or yes or no conundrum that you come into when you're trying to make a decision. And their argument, and the more I think about it these days, I believe, is that most of the time that's a false choice. If you're thinking I should do something or I shouldn't do something, a binary choice is very often a false choice, because there are more options than you're letting yourself have, that you don't even realize that you could have. A lot of people, when thinking about should I go to college or not, they might be too narrowly thinking about one college or one path through college, when there's like infinite paths, probably. So many different colleges, so many different reasons to go, ways to pay for it, locations to be. And so you could there's different levels of college you could go to rather than just a yes or no. If you're deciding on anything, like if you're deciding should we go out to eat or shouldn't we, well, there's other options. You could have delivery. You could go buy something and bring it home. You could go buy some ingredients and cook them at home that you don't have now. There are many options, and that's one way to help you decide. Another book that they wrote, Made to Stick, and it's about just what makes a good idea. Why do some ideas succeed so well and stick? And they have a mnemonic device. What would it be? An initialism? No, or a acronym. Which one's it? I think it's an acronym. Success, but with one S. SUCCES. And I have it here just because I knew I wouldn't remember. If the best way to have an idea that sticks is if it's simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional, and a good story. If it has all of those elements, chances are the idea is going to stick. So if it's simple, if it's everyone can understand it. And one of the things about this book that I always think about, there are several things I think about, but one of the big ones is the curse of knowledge. That goes under the simple part of the stickiness. I think it's so easy if you are really knowledgeable about something and you want to share it, to talk about it as if everyone knows things that only you know, or you assume that others have the same background as you, or you might not assume that, but it's really easy to forget what others know and don't know. So you will speak in ways, you'll reference things they don't know the reference to. You'll say words they don't understand because they don't know the definition of, because they didn't study the thing that you're talking about. So when you're trying to convey something, you have to try to make sure everyone's on the same page, and not overcomplicate it. It's very hard to realize this sometimes when you are surrounding yourself. Like I grew up watching lots and lots of movies and playing around with video and editing and doing comedy. Especially, you have to make sure others understand what you're talking about. And I will often make references or jokes that are deep cuts that no one's going to understand. Sometimes I do it intentionally because I think it'll be funny anyway. But that's a danger. That's where you're going to lose people, because they're not going to understand what you're saying. And you might not realize it. I forget sometimes, that not everyone has seen Star Wars. That's an example where most people probably have, but some people haven't. So now when I'm doing these more thoughtful videos, not just comedy, I really try to make sure that I explain things that may at first seem like everyone would understand I'm not saying people are dumb and you need to dumb down things for people. It's just that there's so many people and there's so many backgrounds and so many things to know. So why would everyone know about veganism, for instance, or most people would probably know about cats, but not every aspect of cat ownership or beards, or like beard growing, beard grooming. I'm trying to think of another one I did that was a little more specific. Anyway, partly I think I'm trying to think up videos that are more universal so that everyone will understand. But like for veganism, the very first thing I did in that video was define what it is, which was an opportunity for jokes as well. But believe it or not, there are people out there who don't know what it is. So I just wanted to make sure, quickly put that out there in the beginning. So whenever I'm making a video, my first goal is to put everyone on the same page. Right now I'm working on a zero waste video, and a lot of people don't know what that is. I thought I knew what it was, and now that I'm reading about it now, even after already doing it, and realizing that there's more to it than even what I thought I knew. For instance, like the actual zero waste movement began in, at least it was the first thing that was called zero waste, I think, was like in 2000, and I can't remember the organization right now, but they define it not just as an individual trying to reduce their garbage or their waste, but trying to get everyone to think about the full life cycle of a product. In industry, creating a product designed to be reused or modified easily with little resources used, or easily put into a landfill, like a full closed loop of a product, rather than just a person by themselves recycling better, because recycling itself isn't zero waste, because it uses energy to recycle things. So sometimes recycling it runs counter to the zero waste goal. Anyway, this video is long. That's another good video. That's another good book. Outliers. Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers is a good book. Okay, these two are Malcolm Gladwell books, Outliers and Tipping Point. Both of them are interesting, really interesting and enlightening books about just how the world works. Less inspiring to me than the other books, but also somewhat, Outliers in particular, inspiring. That's where like the idea of 10,000 hours of practice comes from. If you have 10,000 hours of practice doing something, chances are you're gonna be an expert at it. Is kind of what the book says, and it goes into like the origin of who we consider geniuses or incredibly successful people like Bill Gates, and the reasons why, the basic argument of the book is that genius isn't just luck. It isn't just someone's born a genius. I mean, maybe, but most of the time it's going to be situational. There's going to be a lot of factors that went into why this person became so successful. Bill Gates, he was able to mess around with computers at a very young age in his school that he went to. And he did it a lot as a kid. There are certain things about the way we assign, like the age a kid is, like if a kid goes into school early versus later, studies show like their trajectory will be different based. At least there's a correlation in like certain ways kids enter school or enter sports and their long-term success. So it's just an interesting read. Tipping Point, same thing. Kind of about companies and how they kind of go viral or get really successful. And there's usually a tipping point, and it requires certain smaller criteria, like, I can't remember what he calls them, mavens, people who really promote a thing. There are certain people that are like really, that just talk to a lot of people that are, and people listen to them. And you don't need that many to create a very large tipping point. And now I'm getting a call. Darn it. And that's one example. And then there's like, I don't remember. I have to reread that book, but it's a good one. And then the fictional book, 100 Years of Solitude. It's my favorite book of all time. I read it in college, not for a class. My friend had to read it for a class, but then I just read it. And it's not for everyone. I know a lot of people who don't like that book. It's very strange. A lot of characters with the same names. It's like a generational family stories, and it's magic realism. So it's magical things happen for no explainable reason. Like a guy has yellow butterflies who follow him around everywhere he goes. A character just up and floats away into the sky and is gone from the book, just out of nowhere. And lots of other crazy stuff. I loved it. I loved it partially because, I mean, it made me feel things. And the way it's told in the stories, I was just engrossed more so in this book than almost any other book I ever read. But also, it's useful and inspiring to me because it showed me that like there are no rules. You can write anything. This book showed me that a new way to write a story and to I mean, it was an old book by the time I read it, but at the time he wrote it, magic realism was kind of a crazy thing. You could say he invented it, but I don't want to make those claims. But anyway, it's a real good book. Check it out. This has been a rambly video about 6 books. I hope you enjoyed it. And I have to go to the doctor now because as a checkup, I haven't been for a while. This is completely unrelated. Check out that new video I put up and my Patreon for videos like this every single weekday if you'd like to. And I'm going to put links to those books down below. And this isn't sponsored in any way by any of these books.